it's Aurora and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Hello. So I'm going to be talking today about Key Ridge by Alison Speka. This is a small town romance. It's enemies to lovers. It's actually my first indie book of the year and my first indie book for quite a while. I found this when I was in a reading slump on Kindle, just sort of looking through for something new. And yeah, I downloaded a sample. That was the first sample I read that I was like, yeah, I really want to read this. And yeah, it's not without its flaws, but I found this quite an easy little read, and it was pleasant, and I do recommend it. But this time, instead of my usual like brief overview of the plot and then like breaking down the things I liked and I didn't, we are just going to talk about the whole story. We are going way into spoiler territory. And yeah, if you want to read this without it getting spoiled, I would say I'll do a quick rundown of like a couple of warnings of the book. I've already given the like the tropes, and yeah, we're just going to get into it. So let's do it. So as I said, this is a small town enemies to lovers. It's got a real grumpy sunshine going on as well, and I do love my grumpy sunshine. I have talked about this. But the warnings I'm going to give, we are going to talk about sudden loss of parents. There will be cheating, and there is talk of pregnancy. Yes, I know I hate pregnancy as a trope or anything else, but in this one, it's cool. It's not often you think I'm going to say that. So that said, if you don't want spoilers, now's the time to like come back, pause this, go read it. It's a pretty short read. It comes in about like sort of 5-ish hours. If you're a fast reader, it's going to be less than that. I'm sort of in the middle for like speed of reading, and yeah, it might take you a little bit longer, but it really is quite a short book. So that said, let's do this. So we start out, we have got Matty and Garrett, who have been together for 8 years. And he is a man-child. You know, she's trying to get him to get ready and get out the door. He is a full-grown man with a job. Apparently, he still needs someone to mother him and get him to do this shit for him. We love a guy like that. So we suddenly find out they have a last-minute get-together come up. It is a friend's engagement party. He has been with his girlfriend for like a year. And she's like, oh, wow, so how did that happen? Because they've been together like 5 minutes. And he's like, it's been a year. She nagged him. And it's like, oh, I didn't realise that was an option. They Matty wants to get married and have kids and, feel settled. Garrett is a man with an excuse for everything. So they have not got there yet. And it's starting to grate at Matty a little bit, clearly. So that's it, right? She's then off on her way to work, and she works in property management in the hospitality industry. And she's got a meeting with a new client coming up, or a potential new client. And she meets up with work pal Sharon, who is, justice for Sharon. She was not in this book enough. She's like, oh my god, it's this Giles Stone. He's the ex-Olympic snowboarder and he gorgeous. Which, and she's like, wow, why would I know anything about snowboarding? Yeah, okay, pictures, yeah, he's cute, no biggie, I've got a man and I'm so happy. Are you though? Because he whinges about the way you make coffee, but then doesn't make it himself. And yeah, so meeting happens. Giles comes in. He is rude from the jump. He does not want to be there. He does not want some soulless corporation taking over this business that he has a partial stake in. His Aunt Bev, however, is like, look, I actually want to listen to this and I want to try and, I want to try and talk him around. I can't do all this on my own. I'm not getting any friggin' younger. So, bless her heart, Bev sticks it out. She listens to the end and she's like, let me have a think and get back to you. But yeah, this is a tempting offer. And it's all how they like streamline the place, help it to run more efficiently. They're not going in, knocking the place down and rebuilding it as a glass box, you know what I mean? So, Giles is being a bit immature and a bit of a grump about this. And it's kind of like unnecessarily so. So that's our meet cute. He comes in, he's rude, and he walks out again. Moving on from that, we are skipping right through to dinner, and it is Lauren and her, new fiance's drinks. They're all already there, and Matty is already trying to sit there and go like, Just smile, just be nice, it's fine. You know, be happy for these people, even though inside she's not. She's miserable because it's like they've got everything I want and they've been together a minute by comparison. You know. And she goes in, we meet Nadine and we meet Jennifer. They have all known each other, and the other guys as well have all known each other since college. And they're talking and it's all friendly. She mentions that she met this guy Giles, and it's like, oh yeah, he's so cute. And it's like, yeah, and he's an asshole as well. And you know, the dinner goes off and it's all fairly nice. Lauren's a bit weird, and yeah, turns out she's feeling really off, and Matty can't work it out. And at the end she sits there and she's like, you really don't see what's going on, do you? You know, she's like, you don't see a problem here. Like, no, why would I? Her fiance gets a bit nervous and he's like, hey, let's go, and ushers her off. She gets in her car, drives back. So it's a couple of days later, and Garrett has said, look, we're going to this fancy restaurant tonight. Get something nice, you know, make sure you've got something nice to wear. And she's like, oh, I have to go from work. I will pack something now and I will be ready at the end of the day just to go straight there. And she's thinking, like, why is he taking me to this, like, swish nice little restaurant? And then she remembers a couple of days later off page, the girls had insisted on going and getting a manicure together. And nothing they don't already do. But she was going to bounce and they're like, no, you absolutely can't. You have to come with us. And she's putting two and two together and thinking he's finally going to pop the question after 8 years. Sharon is just done with this guy not manning up and either like shitting or getting off the pot. You know, ask this girl to marry you or break up or something because you're clearly on different pages. And she, you know, she gets this nice white dress and she's like, I'm going to look amazing. They, Sharon and Matty then go for lunch. And just as she's coming out of the lift or like the elevator, if you're American, like an intern's coming in with coffee. It gets all over Matty. It gets in her bag. Dress is clattered in coffee. It's a write-off. She cannot turn up in that dress. So she's like, look, I'm really sorry. I will update you on everything that happens tonight. But I've got to go home. I've got to get a new dress because I can't do it any other time. Fair. So Matty goes home and she is, you know, in the flat. She's suddenly bumped straight into Garrett, who she's not expecting to see. Why would he be home in the middle of the day? Topless, just in his trousers. And he's like, oh, you're here. Like, it's her gaff too, bruv. Of course, she can come and go as she pleases. And he's like standing in the way of the bedroom door looking very sheepish. And she's like, look, I need to change my dress. And it's like, you know, why are you home in the middle of the day? And he's like, oh, I wasn't feeling well. And she's thinking, oh, dinner's off. And he's like, no, it's just something didn't sit right. Thump. Like, wait, what? There's something in the bedroom. And he's like, oh, it's probably nothing. And she's like, oh, maybe the ring's in there and he's like nervous because of the thing. There is suddenly another thump. And she's like, big man, you're getting out of my way because I want to know what's going on in that bedroom. And she eventually gets past him, opens the door, and there in her bra and a skirt is her best friend Nadine, who's like, oh, you're here. Like, yeah, who thought it? My bedroom, I'm here. And she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, like crying and all the waterworks. No, sorry, how sorry can you be? You've been on her, you know, you've been on her man's knob, so no. It all comes out, this has been going on for 6 months and they are together. Right. So we fast forward to the next day. Matty is moving her stuff out. She is all packed up and she's going. And Garrett's like, you know, I'm so sorry. It doesn't have to be this way. Why are you being so grumpy about this? I mean, dude, you've been disappointing 2 women at the same time for 6 months. Like, I'm offended for women everywhere at this point that you are in existence. And she's like, yeah, it does have to be this way. You were sleeping with my best friend for the past 6 months. And my best friend was sleeping with the man I'd been with for 8 years for the past 6 months. I'm allowed to be angry. And he's like, you know, well, you know, just moving her in here is so practical because, and it's good for you because you're not losing out any money on the lease. It's like, wow, let's just, start rubbing that halo for you. Get it all nice and buffed up. I really hated Garrett. You're supposed to, I know, but I really hated Garrett. And she's like, quit acting like you're doing me a favour. You have just moved your mistress into the home that we've shared for like the past few years. So she gets to her mum and dad's and she's unpacking. She calls up Jennifer and she's like, I can't believe it, Nadine and Garrett, what a pair of assholes. And Jennifer's actually trying to really play this down, like, oh, I think you're overreacting. Like, really? Do you want to have, you want to come home and find your man in bed with another woman? Or, just out of bed with another woman and half dressed? Because I don't think you're going to feel the same way. It turns out Jennifer knew they had been sleeping together since a holiday that Matty couldn't make it to. And yeah, Jennifer knew, the friends all knew, everyone knew, even the fiance who's been around for a year knew. And, it was like, oh, well, I said they should tell you, and if they didn't, I would. Well, you didn't, did you? You should have said something 6 months ago. Side note, I am really hoping that Lauren either goes, do you know what? You're not seeing these people anymore because I've seen what they'll do to like one of their own and I'm basically an outsider. Or she just, she stays with him, things are fine, he fucks up, and then in the divorce she takes him for everything. Because these people are horrible. I like a little revenge. But yeah, why would also you want to marry into this friend group? Because, he spends a lot of time with these people. These are friends he's had for years. This is the kind of company he keeps. Why, Matty has dodged a bullet. Why are you still here? Anyway, side note, that's just where I'm at with it. Anyway, Sharon then steps up as a friend. Sharon is solid because she's just like, you didn't come back to work on Friday. Mike's, her boss, said you were ill. I hope you were okay. And she's like, I caught Garrett in bed with another woman. And she's like, I never liked him. He wasn't good enough for you. And, she's like, I will take you out and get you drunk at least. Come on, that's the least I can do. We can go out and we can just drown your sorrows. And I'm like, that is a good friend. The one who will just step up and go, do you know what, love? We're gonna get through this. We're just gonna have a few drinks and it's all gonna be fine. And Mike actually does turn around to Matty and say, hey, good news. We will be going forward with the Key Ridge thing. We're going to find an assistant manager to, go help out for 30 days. And it's, just a trial period. If they're happy at the end, they'll keep with our services. All is good. And they start interviewing and it's not going well. Because quite frankly, why would you go out to some little remote town for 30 days with no guarantee there's a job at the end of it? It's a big ask for people, and I can understand no one really wanting to take the job. So after another no-show interview and a bunch of others, it's starting to look like the trial period's going to just never even happen. It's going to get cancelled, and Matty is desperate to have one positive going on in her life. At least her job's going well. She's desperate for a win. I can't say I blame her because she has just lost all her friends and she's just lost her boyfriend. I mean, quite frankly, you're better off losing Garrett. I think you should have lost him years ago. It's Florida. There's gators. There's plenty of places you could have lost him permanently. Really didn't like him. Right. So she goes home that night. Her parents are having a party. Her sister has also come over and her sister's like, look, I'm taking the phone off of you. Stop looking at the social media. It's not healthy. Okay, so they're all round there having a housewarming to celebrate these two becoming a couple and living together. It's gross. But this isn't on you, girl, and this is not going to help you enough. So that happens. She then finds out through social media, even though, like Frankie has said, like, absolutely not. She's gone like, I will just have one look. It's that, like, I must get my fix. She finds out that Nadine and Garrett are engaged. I mean, quite frankly, keep him. So at the party, she's drinking. She gets drinking with these two old ladies from the retirement village where her parents live. And one of them turns around and says, you need to call him and give him a piece of your mind. Like, no, 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 she should not. Because she is 3 sheets to the wind. What she should be doing is drinking water like her sister keeps telling her to and calming the hell down. She doesn't listen. She calls Garrett and she's like, what the heck? Married? You're getting married? What? He's like, I'd rather have this conversation when you're sober. And it's like, dog, you are not in a position to start calling shots. But like, don't mention shots to Matty. She will absolutely drink them all. And she's very like, no, we are talking about this. What? Why not me? Why wasn't I good enough? And he's like, oh, Nadine's pregnant, so I feel like I have to marry her. It's like, oh, good, you've been baby trapped. That makes me feel slightly better. For once, I'm happy about a pregnancy in a book. Because I think, quite frankly, Garrett's going to be miserable. I do feel sorry for that kid, though. Yeeks. Anyway, Matty goes off the deep end, and it's about time. She has been like putting on that big fake smile and saying, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's grand, for way too long. And it's not. It's clearly not grand. She ends up, there's these little golf carts that they used to get around, because it's like a little tiny retirement village. They don't need cars as such. And she's in GTA's a golf cart. She goes careening off. She goes to go around a corner in the wrong lane, nearly goes into someone, swerves. She hits the deck and she needs stitches in her forehead. She's off to A&E. Her mum's trying to be nice about it. Frankie is clearly very worried about her because this is not her sister. Her dad is ready to go off the deep end. Honestly, they're all quite realistic, and I don't blame any of these reactions. And it's basically like, you're not helping yourself here. You're not getting better. You're not getting your life on track. Or you're just getting worse. You're spiraling. Maybe you need to leave and get out. And while she is sat in A&E and she's got her stitches and she's got a big bruise on her head, she has an idea. So she is now on her way to Colorado. She is, this is like the plane journey. It's the tail end of it. And she's on this like rickety little plane that is just for like, inland connections. It's not going, they're not built to go far, and they're not very big. These are like, 2 rows there, 2 rows there, tiny little plane. Now, here's kind of where I start to get a bit of a gripe about this. We are 21%, probably a bit further than that through this book. And we have had one very brief scene with Giles the meet cute. We have met a ton of characters who she is now nowhere near and left. We have had a lot of build up to completely strip it away and start again in a new place. Which, yeah, I love this book in many ways. I think it's quite an easy read. I think it's very entertaining. But I do feel like the pacing's just a little off. But, I'm not going to complain, because it is an enjoyable little book. And anyway, so she gets there. She struggles to rent a car because they're like, oh, we don't want to give you this car because you have got a Florida license plate. And have you seen all this snow? We don't feel confident because it's, if you go off the road, you could hurt a local who knows how to drive in this snow. It's dangerous. She finally convinced me. She's like, I can't get around without a car. I need to get to Key Ridge. There's no other way. I've got to drive. She gets the biggest SUV that is in this lot, but they're like, look, at least we think you can stay on the road with this. Because, driving in snow is not like driving in, sunny weather, warm weather, wet weather. It's got its own issues. Says the woman who doesn't have a driving license. But I do know a few things. I'm not completely ignorant. She pulls up at the right. So she finally gets to Key Ridge. She pulls up at the lodge. Bev meets her. They have a little look around. It's all very cozy, very like, dark wood and what you imagine kind of a sort of ski lodge type place to be, I guess. As someone who has never been skiing, I'm having to take a punt in what I've seen in media. But it sounds really lovely. And there's this little disused room that used to be like a lounge room. And she's like, could do something with that. So Bev sort of gives her a little whistle-stop tour. And she's like, it's really great to have you here. Thank you so much for dropping everything. We know this is like kind of a demotion for you doing this. And she's really lovely. I like Bev. And, she's like, right, you're going to be basically staying above my garage. I've got a little converted apartment. It's a little studio. There's nothing special about it. But there's a few bits of food in there that I picked up for you. Just some snacks and things. it's enough to get you settled before you go and, do some food shopping and stuff like that. Matty at this point is also standing there like, thank you, it's very nice, because she is not dressed for the occasion. And this is a bit of a running theme. And Giles turns up and he's like, you're not dressed properly. She's like, I had to get what I could from Florida. No, I have never been somewhere this cold, but I can acclimatise. I will be fine. I am actually looking forward to this. He is continuing to be rude. We are like nearly a quarter of the way through this book and we've only just got Giles back. As I said, this pacing feels a bit off. And bear in mind, you've got 30 days for these enemies to become lovers. And I think if this book had been like a 60-day trial, I think it would have felt a little less rushed, and I think the enemies to lovers would have been a bit better. But that's just my preference. That's kind of my view on it. It didn't feel too insta-love, I will say that, just off the bat. But it's, it does feel a little rushed in places, just for how much time has been given for these two. Anyway, so they take her back to the little apartment. It's like, just get yourself settled in. We'll worry about starting work tomorrow, which, fair, very kind. We like Bev. Bev being nice. Giles is still being snarky. And it's like, I've got to go and get a proper jacket, and I've got to get some decent boots for the snow. And Giles is like, good luck with that. You can't drive in this weather. And Bev's like, yeah, he's right. You can't. Giles, give her a lift. And he's just suddenly like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you'll want to go and mouth off and be a knob. So, driver, go on, you can drive in this snow. You grew up here. Off you pop. They have a very tense drive to the store. And she's just like, he is always rude. Why am I being nice? I keep trying. He keeps pushing back. It just feels pointless. And then you actually see him with people in the store and he's friendly and he's polite and he's actually not an arsehole. Just to her. And, in the car again, and she's saying, look, I'm not some soulless corporation come here to destroy everything. We just want to help you run this place a bit better. I didn't think that was a huge deal. But, he's not really warming. And he starts calling her Florida. That's, a lot of these romances, there'll be a nickname, and hers is Florida. It's not even really a nickname, it's just a statement of fact. She is, from Florida, born and raised. I didn't love it. It's not the worst I've heard. So it's the following morning and she's trying to start this car in the snow. She's never started a car in the snow and no one has told her how to do it. Bear in mind, we all know she's from Florida. She's never needed to know this information. Just because you know it doesn't mean to say everyone knows it, even if it is practical. What is practical to you is not practical knowledge to her. And, she's there for like 5 minutes. She's like, I'll just let this thing and, I'll, leave it on for a bit and it'll all warm up and eventually I'll be able to get this ice off of the windscreen and everything else. Giles turns up, moody as ever. Well, you've just been sat here for the past 5 minutes. And she's like, well, you just sat there and watched me struggle for the past 5 minutes. So, not my problem. It's like, you need to do this. This is a scraper. You use it for scraping the ice off. They're like, this is the first time she's seen snow. Like, she ever needed to know about a scraper for ice. Like, wind your neck in. I actually did struggle for a while to like Giles. So it's Matty's first day and, she's making just little changes, like, oh, do you have maps of the hotel for guests? No. Well, if we get some maps, it means they don't get lost. Do you find that's an issue? Oh, yeah. Like, it's little things, She notices there's a door that's just open that guests can just wander in, but it's like a basement where they keep, like, towels and stuff. And she's like, okay, we'll get, like, an electronic lock on that door. So there's just, you type in a code and it unlocks. It just means that guests don't go down there and there's no risk of someone like slipping on the stairs and getting hurt. You don't get sued. Jobs are good. And it's all these simple things. So they end up going into this little room that's known as the lounge, which is completely disused. It has been for quite some time. And Matty's like, hey, if we did this up, we could serve food, like nothing major, even if it's just like snacky type things and nibbles and it would be somewhere that locals can come. Giles is like, hey, we're barely managing to get by and you want to create more work. And everyone else is going, actually, we really like this. And he wants to be really resistant to all of the changes. But eventually, He just gets steamrolled by everyone else, and it's like, yeah, we're going to do this place up. It's going to be lovely. So next up, she is fixing a lock on the door, and it is then put in the wrong way round. And Giles is, of course, making comments about it, and he's like, you know, I'll fix it. She's like, I'll fix it later. I don't need your help, because, you know, what help have you been thus far? So then we meet Erin, who is Johnny's wife, Bev's daughter-in-law, who is really like cuddly and friendly, invites her out for, you know, lunch, says, oh, you know, we're having a bonfire, why don't you come? It's a potluck, if there's food, it'll be grand, you know, we'd love to have you, get yourself a part of, you know, the small town life. And then she's like, oh, and have you ever snowboarded? And Matty's like, this is my first time seeing snow. She's like, right, well, we're going to teach you to snowboard, because, you know, you kind of have to learn these things being here, even though she's only here for 30 days. You get the opportunity, you take it. It's time, start living. Anyway, fast forward, it's the bonfire, and Giles actually turns up on the doorstep about the same time. There's a little less animosity. Things start to thaw a little bit. And, you know, Erin's really friendly. She's making cocoa with peppermint schnapps, so it's like a little bit alcoholic, but, you know, chocolatey and warming. They have the bonfire. Matty ends up coming in, but she clocks that Giles is talking to this woman. It turns out that's Giles's ex. They have a bit of a drinking game. If you get asked a question. If you don't want to answer, you have to take a drink. And it all comes out that Matty got cheated on, that is Giles's ex, that he, you know, that's his only ex, that's the only girl he's dated. They were on again, off again. She was kind of hoping that when he came back from being a professional snowboarder, he would be on again, and he's not. And, you know, they actually start to get on and warm to each other, and he even admits, like, actually, this was fun. Maybe you're not as bad as I had you pegged. So, yeah, she's barely been in Key Region already. The enemies are starting to at least become friends with very little time. Like I say, 30 days was not enough, unfortunately. Next up, Matty is still making changes to the hotel. It's just little things, and Frankie, her sister, checks in, and he's like, you know, what's it like? It's all good. And Matty ends up going snowboarding, and she ends up Erin's started teaching her, but then Erin collars Giles, and Erin can kind of see that there's an attraction between them that they haven't seen. And they're getting on really well, and by the end of it, you know, Matty is sitting there going, hey, maybe I do fancy this guy. Like, oh, sweetie, we're getting to like 50% of the way through this book. I really hope you realise it soon. So, work is going well. We have girls' night with Erin. I have to say, as much as I miss Sharon, Erin is great. You know, it was so nice giving Matty a friend pretty quickly out the gate, because otherwise it could have been a very lonely existence. And they go to the pub, they end up doing karaoke, she plays darts with Giles, and she even gets Giles doing karaoke, and he's just like, never speak of this again. But it's so sweet that they end up, you know, still singing a song together. So next up, Matty's actually heard from her boss, things are going well. They've started looking for Matty's replacement there, because obviously, you know, this was only meant to be a temporary thing. And Matty starts to get a bit of a panic on, and she's like, oh my god, I don't really know if I want to come back. This has been so much more fun than she expected. She doesn't have to worry about bumping into her ex or any of her ex-friends. You know, she's actually having a blast. She's trying new things. It's been really good for her. And she buries her head in the sand about it, which, given that she's been pretty proactive through this book, that felt a bit weird. But when we go into panic mode, sometimes we do silly things. Matty and Giles end up going to the hardware store. They need to start doing up the lounge, and they need to get some paint and some bits to decorate. And when they get to the hardware store, Giles actually gets really protective. This guy is a bit of a... I suppose he's a bit of a creep. I mean, Matty doesn't read it that way, but Giles gets very like, you know, I'm going to step in front of you and I'm going to deal with this guy because I don't like the way he's looking at you. Which, you know, it's nice to see things are finally improving between those two, I suppose. It did come a bit out of nowhere, but it was, you know, it was a nice moment. It was a nice little touch. They get back, they're starting to like do bits around to decorate and do things and make an effort. And then Frankie messages Matty. Now, I thought this was a bit daft that Matty got the message when she did because she is at work. But it's Frankie who's like, they're engaged. She's pregnant. Did you know this? And she sends a picture of the social media. And I'm like, you were telling her to avoid social media. Why was this a good idea? There are better ways you could tell her. So Matty legs it and she's like crying. She's really upset. She ends up going down to the little basement and obviously she ends up locked in. But Giles is actually pretty hot behind her and he's like, you know, is it something we did with the decorating? Have I upset you? Have I done something? And he's really sweet. It's the first time he's actually really caring. Not just like that protective alpha hole crap of like, I'm just not going to let you basically interact with this guy on your own. And I couldn't even read something that was particularly like that Matty couldn't handle. But, you know, he's there and she just offloads and he's like, really understanding and he's very sweet and she's like, why wasn't it me? And the feelings of not feeling good enough. It was a nice moment and they end up kissing. Kiss gets a bit passionate. They get interrupted. And, you know, Bev's like, hey, you two, you've been down here for a little while. Just realised you were locked in. Let's get you out. And, you know, it's like, okay, fine. Yeah, nothing happened. Nothing to see here. Bev turns around and says like, do you know what, Matty? Go home, you've been working so hard, go and get some rest, because you deserve it. Which she then promptly does. She goes home, she eats snack food, she feels sorry for herself, she falls asleep. And then she ends up sleeping in and it's the next day and Bev's like, do you know what? You need a full day off where you just relax. So don't worry about it, just stay home. And she's kind of in and out of sleep. She messages Frankie and says like, oh, I kissed him. You know, Frankie's like, hey, it's about time. Move on. It's all good. And we realise that Matty is a bit of a serial monogamist that, you know, like it's never just a kiss. This is going to be something more. And Matty's like, oh, am I really like that? Oh, snap, I am like that. It's fine. It's just a kiss. You know, nothing's going to happen. And then the power ends up going out. She falls back asleep. She wakes up. It's cold. And she's sort of trying to find a few little bits to, you know, like a torch, maybe some candles. She has no idea how she's going to keep warm because the heating is out. There is all this banging on the door. Giles turns up in a right raging mood. And he's like, you need to keep your phone on you during a snowstorm. And she's like, I'm only just aware there's a snowstorm. I have been asleep most of the day. You know, I did not know. And he's like, you haven't sorted out that little, like, you know, wood burner to keep warm. You're going to freeze to death. And he's getting really arsey with her. And it's like, no, she is from Florida. She never had to know all these things before. And at no point has anyone taught her. No one has sat and gone through with her and gone like, look, if this happens, do this. You know, if the power goes out, put this wood burner on. Otherwise, you'll freeze to death. She does not know about all these things. Oh, there's a snowstorm, keep your phone on you so people can contact you. Again, she didn't even know there was a snowstorm. I thought it was a bit rude. There is a clear, you know, they end up talking about the kiss. Oh, it was a bad idea. Shouldn't have done it. And yeah, maybe. The timing wasn't great given that she'd just been crying and it was a bit of an emotional state. But, you know, yeah, it's not the worst. It's not the worst crime a man in a romance has committed. It wasn't even a crime. She was into it. And there is a bit of a spark of energy there. And then it's like, you know, we could sleep together. It's like, I want to, but this is a bad idea. He has that fuck it, comes back, and they sleep together. And it's not a very long scene. It's not particularly graphic. I will say this, it was really well written, and I did enjoy it. It did not outstay its welcome. It didn't last all that long either, though. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe it was just the right balance. It is also the only spicy scene in the book. Now, as a spicy reader myself, I need more than one scene. And if you don't like spice in your romances, it's one scene too many. I did have a bit of a, I don't quite know who this is for. I was left with some, like, smut blue balls, whereas, you know, there are going to be plenty of people who would be going, one scene too many, if you ask me. So I don't really know who it was for with, like, just the one scene, but it was one good scene, I will give it that. Anyways, the next day, Matty wakes up expecting Giles next to her. He isn't. He's already gone. She goes over to the hotel, and it's like, you know, she's checking her phone, and it's like, oh, right, yeah, there's Bev saying, like, you know, power's out, we have a generator, we're fine, but, like, don't panic, there's a few bits here and there. Haven't heard from you, gonna send Giles over. Giles being all, where are you, where are you, where are you? And even she's like I was going out in a snowstorm, I'm from Florida. You know, and Matty ends up telling Frankie, and she's like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is how you get over a man, you get under another one. Also, serial monogamist, you two are absolutely going to end up together. And she's like, oh, we are not. You know, this was needed, basically, and I think it was. And the other thing I will say, actually, circling back to the smut, is that because there wasn't a lot of even dirty thoughts or anything like that, it did come on quite suddenly, and then there is no more spice between them. There's no more, like, thoughts about, you know, his arse or anything like that, or like, I want to give that a squeeze. You know, I just want to give it a good smack for a job well done. I'm going to get off of Giles's backside, I promise now, I'm done. And, yeah, it felt a bit weird, although I will say it kind of did work for the second half of the novel, given what's about to happen. So she gets to work, and, yeah, the power's all back, everything's normal. Giles is kind of acting like nothing happened, and they are in that, yeah, let's just carry on. Like, we can't start something because you're here temporarily, and I'm going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt, someone's going to get hurt. It doesn't seem worth it. It's just going to get messy. We just focus on working well together. I mean, fair. You know, I can't fault him for that. I mean, you know, probably shouldn't have gone back and done what he did, but we wouldn't have had a lot of story if we didn't have that happen. And then Matty and Erin end up going snowboarding again. She's like, oh, you've got to go now because it's all powder. And she's explaining why this is the best snowboarding weather. And they're there, and they're going down this little hill. It's nothing like massive because she's never done this, but she's done it once before. And she's going down, and a skier is a bit out of control and calls out behind Matty, knocks her, sends her flying. She goes into the tree. She's bouncing off trees, trying to not get too severely injured, and she is. She basically hits a tree, and she is just there, crumpled, and she tries to get up. She can't. She tries to phone for help. Her phone is basically in several pieces at this point. The phone screen's absolutely shattered, and nothing's working. She's stranded. She's trapped. You know, she's tried calling out. No one's heard her. And we don't know exactly how long she's there for, but we're going to assume it's quite a while. And she's trying to call out, and nothing's happening. And eventually someone finds her. They get her in an ambulance, and then she's in the hospital, and it turns out she's got a mild concussion and a fractured ankle. Don't envy either. And then here's Giles outside, who's claiming to be her husband and to let him in to see her. Because the thing is, Matty is all on her own. She hasn't got any family that can come and see her. I mean, realistically, yeah, Bev and Giles are the two best bets to go and make sure she's okay. And eventually the hospital are like, well, we don't really believe you, but we don't have any other choice. You don't seem to be giving us any other choice. They let him in, and he's like, you know, I was going absolutely spare. I was out of my mind with worry. Are you okay? He's not being horrible to her. And even she's like, hey, that big, garish, colourful snowsuit I was wearing, you know, good thing I was wearing it because it helped me get spotted. And he ends up saying, like, you know, look, I'm going to take you home. I'm going to make sure you're okay. And as an ex-snowboarder, he knows how to look after a concussion and a fractured ankle because they're things he has had. They are risks you take in certain extreme sports. And he does. He drives her, bless him. He takes her out of the hospital. He drives her home. Drives her back to his. And he's like, right, get you up the stairs. He won't even let her open the door or anything. He's helping her out, helping her on the crutches. Orders food, realising she hasn't eaten in a very long time. And they end up talking, eating food. She's like, you know, really, like, grateful. And he's really good to her. He properly takes care of her. And then he's like, you know, let's stick something on you want to watch. And she's like, I want to watch a rom-com. And he's like, given the day you've had, you can watch whatever you like. And she's kind of comparing it to Garrett, who would have just been complaining that it wasn't what he wanted to watch. And, you know, he's like, can I just hold you? Because I feel awful. And she's like, I didn't know you cared. And he's like, I did not know I cared this much either. There's no direct transition into being a couple of like a conversation or anything, but this is kind of where it begins. And it's really sweet. You know, he's like, there's my phone, call your family, let them know you're okay, tell them for the love of God what happened. And, you know, he does that, and she's like, you know, tells her mum, tells her sister, and everything's okay. And he's like, you know, we're going to get you a new phone sorted, and you need a shower, you can't shower, I'm going to run you a bath. And he like puts this thing on her boot to make sure it stays dry, and he's outside the bathroom door making sure, you know, if she needs anything, he can be right away in there. He puts her to bed in his bed. It's all very sweet. Next morning, he's making breakfast. Erin comes round with Johnny. She feels awful. You know, Giles is there like, damn, Skippy, you should feel awful. And, you know, it's when Matty realises it's a week until Thanksgiving and she's actually a bit homesick. And, yeah, that was quite a sweet moment. But the other thing is she's like, as much as I'm going to miss not being around my family for the first time for Thanksgiving, I want to be here. You know, hardly surprising. And she's starting to think about maybe staying there rather than going back to Florida in a more serious way. So back at work, they decide to name the lounge after Giles's mum, which I thought was a really sweet little touch. And they're going to have the opening date on Thanksgiving. And then she ends up going home for the first time, and he's like making excuses to stay with her. It's all very sweet. And then suddenly Matty gets a message from her boss, and he's like, you know, you didn't get back to me about any of these replacements, so I've just picked one. And she's there starting to kind of go like, okay, backpedal, because I want to stay here. I don't want to come back. And, you know, Giles then ends up getting this horse-drawn carriage. It's very sweet to drive down to the hotel, and it is really romantic, and it's so lovely. And they have a really nice time. The opening's a big hit, and even Giles is like, okay, you were right. And he's like, yes, we turned up together. I don't care. Clearly we like each other. Let's just leave it at that. And then at the end of the night, he goes to talk to Bev. And then when he comes back, he has gone really cold. And he manhandles Matty to her feet. And she's like, ow, careful, you know, fractured ankle. You know how bad this is. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, sorry, and whatever. He's really cold, and then, you know, it's like, oh, do you want to stay at mine tonight? And he's like, no, I'm going to go. He turns, walks away, and eventually does sort of turn, and she's like, what? He turns, he'll gives her a quick peck on the cheek and goes again. Mike calls up the next day, this is her boss, and like, look, Key Ridge, it ain't happening. Staying is not an option. We've had a phone call from the people who own the place, and they don't want to continue with our services. We're really sorry, you worked really hard, you know, this is not on you. You know, we'll see you on the next flight out. It's not, you know, there's no point staying to the end of the 30 days. So we haven't even had 30 days. Matty goes over, and Matty is like, you know, what happened? And he's like, oh, the nephew called up and said, don't bother, we don't want your help. And Matty goes to have it out with Giles. I'm like, yeah, well done on finding that spine. It took you a while. Maybe they put it in when they were bandaging up her ankle. I don't know. She goes and they start arguing, and it's the miscommunication trope. It's the third act breakup in the last like 15% of the book. I actually think it's later than that. We are really speed running all of this. I would quite have liked to not have the third act breakup. I didn't think it was that necessary. Yeah, Matty should have been a bit more on it and talked with Giles, but at the same time, he should have said like something, anything. He shouldn't have just cancelled everything without saying anything to her. They have a big Barney, and she just goes. She packs her stuff. She didn't even say goodbye to anyone. She full Irish goodbyes it out of there. I don't blame her. It's a week later, and she's back with her folks, and she is miserable. And they're kind of trying to pull her out of it, and it's not going anywhere. And, you know, suddenly she's out getting coffee. She's still got this boot on and she's still looking a bit banged up. And she bumps into Garrett and she's like, great. And he's like, I just want to say I'm sorry for it. And she's like, no. Whatever you've got to say, I don't care. I'm done. I don't want to hear a word you have to say. I don't care for your excuses. Nothing. Just go. Leave me alone. And he's like, oh, but I'm here. She's like, no. And she really is firm with this. And she's like, at least Nadine isn't here. And then in she walks. Apparently she's starting to show. So she's either wearing something incredibly skin tight. She's like growing this thing at the speed of light. Or she has been pregnant for a little while. Now, this is where I got a bit disappointed. Because while she's just like, well, they're like, oh my God, what happened to your ankle? Snowboarding. Apparently I'm not very good at it. And she's very like, you know, look, I don't want to get involved here. I don't want to have this argument. There is a part of me that would have been like, you know what? Good luck, Nadine, because you are going to be raising 2 children. That one in there and that one right there, because he is not grown up. You're going to be getting his fucking suits dry cleaned. You're going to be the one doing, you know, making his morning coffee that I'm sure he will complain about. He's going to be the one complaining that you're not getting him out of bed on time for work and out the door on time for work. All the while you're going to be a parent as well. So good luck with that. Because it's true. You know, it's like, I don't know, I felt like she could have been a bit more sharp-tongued. I get she's depressed because of this breakup. I just feel like it lacked a little bit. There could have been something more. I felt a little bit lacking there, but I still, you know, still like you handled it with class, I think. So, Mike's sort of saying at work, like, look, we're happy with your work and all, but it feels like things are taking a bit of a dip. You're not your usual self. We don't want you to keep sort of going down in your work quality. We don't want this to become an issue. And Matty's like, I mean, the team seem to be absolutely fine without me anyway. Who cares? You know, her mum's like, you know, talk to me. And her mum and I think even her sister are just like, have you talked to Giles? You know, well, he hasn't talked to me either. And it's like, maybe you need to just do this. Maybe you need to rip the Band-Aid off and just talk to him, man. Because this is not good for you. And instead, she ends up getting a flight out there. She flies back out to Key Ridge, which is nice. They get back together. You know, she bumps into him and he's like, I'm really sorry, you didn't call me. And he's like, I'm sorry, you didn't call me either. And he's like, actually, funnily enough, I'm going to be flying out to Florida to come and speak to you and to come and see you. Which, again, I thought was really quite sweet. And, you know, it's a miracle they didn't completely miss each other. And that's it. They get back together. And we have a epilogue 7 months later. And she's going for a walk with Erin. She does this once a week. They go for a nice little walk. And Erin's like trying to rush her out the door. Like, come on. We don't want to be late. And she's like, for fucking what? It's a walk. You know, the hill ain't going anywhere. Giles is there and he asks her to marry him, and they say, I love you, the end. So yeah, that's it. I did enjoy it. I know I did have a few little gripes. I like the I love you in a book a little bit sooner than the last page, but it was still, I think it worked for this. As I say, I think I would have preferred it if it was like a 60-day trial and they had a bit more time. I did love the whole sort of arc of him looking after her after the accident. I thought it was lovely. Yeah, all in all, it's a good book. There is a sequel. There is another book. It is a different couple that's going to be focused on this time. I'm on the fence if I'm going to read it or not. If you've read it, then do leave me a comment and let me know what your thoughts on it are. Is it any good? I will say this, the dialogue's really good for an indie author. I think it's actually really good. My only gripe is the pacing felt a bit off, but it was still enjoyable. It didn't hugely detract. And I did, you know, as much as like I do wish they'd have been enemies a bit longer into lovers, I still thought it was good. I still liked it. It felt a bit quick to turn into friends, but it didn't feel like insta love. Because I mean, we didn't get an I love you until 7 months later. So yeah, it was lovely. It was a sweet little book. I am in 2 minds about the next one. And yeah, if you've read it, then do let me know. Let me know your thoughts on it. If you've got any other like cozy romance recommendations, leave those in the comments as well, because I am looking for some new ones. And that's all I got for you today. If you enjoyed this is my longest video yet. I'm actually quite amazed I managed to go this long waffling. You know, do leave me a like. Do subscribe if you're not subscribed, because it really does help my channel out. And I will see you next time, guys. Bye.